We got Zach Frazier, one of my favorite players in this class, 4-time state wrestling champ in the state of West Virginia. Love that. Love that. And it shows in his tape. This guy understands leverage, angles, and spacing so well. He really gets pressure points of how to move people to where he needs them to be. And that's something that I just value very highly. And I said at the start of the show, there are not many guys that I really trust with a rookie quarterback to come in and be a rookie center. Zach Frazier's the one guy that I really trust to be just fine doing that. I don't think his upside is as high as some of these other guys. Like, I don't think his ceiling is going to be the same as a JPJ, but what Frazier gives you is a guy who's just going to start and be a good starter in this league for a long time, as long as injuries don't hit him. I see loose hips. I see him rolling his hips through contact. I see him understanding how to use his hand placement and his leverage to just open up the spaces that he wants to open. Just such a impressive understanding and a low center of gravity. There's just so much working for him. I think he's going to be a really good pro player. I do think he gives up a little bit of ground early on when he's faced with power, like bigger nose tackles that, you're the center. You can't afford to give up that much ground on initial contact. And he gives a little more than you'd like, but I don't think he's a maxed out frame. I think there's room to add some power there. And the loose hips, I don't think he has any problem getting into his anchor. I think it's just, there's a little bit more he can add. And I think that little bit more will help him. And again, power is really the only thing that I really saw that was negative for him. He really needs to be squared up to the more powerful blockers, the bigger nose tackles, to be able to control them. It's impressive that he can control them because they're bigger than him. But he needs to be able to have his hips square to the point of attack. There are some guys you'll find who can get away with not being square, not being in, the perfect position to absorb power, that can still do it. Frazier isn't one of them, but with how technically sound he is, I still feel fine about it.
Yeah, he's just a really good player. I mean, you've watched more than I have, so I don't have a whole lot to add there. But yeah, just the one thing I always like to say about him is, like, you mentioned the wrestling. Like, it's so you don't even have to know that he was a wrestler. If you watch his tape, you'll be like, this guy was probably a wrestler at some point in his life, because you could just see it. And I saw a rep today. I was just scrolling Twitter, and I don't know who posted it, but it was a rep of him taking out a linebacker and just flipping him over his head with ease. Like, just a 250-pound guy just flipped him. I want
to know what that guy said to him the rep before that made him do it, because it was like unprovoked. It looked like it was provoked. It was just why.
It was a little bit late, maybe right after the whistle. You gotta love that. So but the only really concern I have, it's not even much of a concern. I wouldn't even describe it as a concern. I just think he's probably a center only guy, which just, and that's, so it's not a concern. I think he could be a really good center, but when you're drafting those guys, you have to be pretty sure that they're going to be at least a starting quality center, because there's no utility there of being a backup center. You don't see those in the NFL. So would be the only knock I would have on him from the little I've watched. But again, I think he can be a starting NFL quality center, so that's a less of a concern than what I would have. But just kind of it lowers his floor, less room for error. I
could be wrong here. I do think he did play a little bit of guard at one point, not a lot, and it doesn't necessarily mean he can do it at the NFL level, but I think he did, which does help make me a little more comfortable with that. But you're right, I do think he is a center almost all the time in the NFL.
Yeah.